Another week and another massive 1600 player tournament has been completed, and with this tournament we're getting some new surprising and spicy decks hopping into the meta and doing really well. Hey guys, Zen here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 5 off meta decks that honestly performed so well in this massive tournament that I truly believe they're worth looking into. But before we do any of that, let's go over the overall metadata of this tournament. As you can see, Carnivore, Mewtwo, EX, of course, #1 played, and then the second most played is Raichu Pikachu. So like Lieutenant Surge was actually looking a little bit better than just regular Pikachu EX with Zapdos. And then we have, you know, Charizard, Moltres, and then it just trickles down into all these other ones that it's just a lot of people played them. But look at that number, 539 players played Mewtwo Gardevoir. It's a Mewtwo Gardevoir game. We're just lucky to be in it. But anyway, let's talk about the 5 other off meta decks that performed really well. For example, we have this 58th place deck that runs Moltres and Center Scorch. This thing is, and it throws a Golbat in here too. So check this out. This deck is already kind of nuts because we have the Golbat that I assume counters the Mewtwo's, but also Center Scorch to be there to deal out the whopping 130 damage. I've never seen a Center Scorch do this well. Now, some of you might be thinking, oh, 58? That's not a good deck. There was over like 1,600 players. Yeah, the top 100 decks, we're looking at them. If anything stands out, we're talking about it. And this definitely stands out. This is spicy, you guys. This is what I'm talking about. The pilot of this deck is DeWolf. Shout out to them. They went 8-2. That's a pretty good record if you ask me. We had 2 Sabrinas, 1 Giovanni, 2 Pokeballs, 2 X Speeds, and 2 Old Ambers, as well as, you know, 2 lines of the Center Scorch, 2 lines of the Moltres, 2 Golbats, however, only 1 Zubat, and I think that's to help counteract the Pokeball hits. So that way, if you do have your Zubat, you could just evolve it into Golbat and deal a whopping 40 damage, maybe even 60 damage if it's into something like a Mewtwo Gardevoir line. And let's check out the matches since we can. It looks like they got these wins into Alakazam, Clefable. They beat Meta Pikachu with this deck, which I'd imagine is with the Center Scorch, getting your Center Scorch online and just coming in dealing 130 damage. That knocks out the Zapdos and that knocks out the Pikachu easily. They lost to they won against another Pikachu, but they lost to a Starmie Articuno. It makes sense. That's their type matchup. But now let's look at the things that they beat. They beat a Gardevoir right here, a Mewtwo Gardevoir. They beat another one here, and then they eventually lost against this Mewtwo EX Gardevoir. So if you're looking like, oh, how can this deck stack up against meta decks? Look at their matchups. They literally beat what, like 5 or 6 meta decks. So I don't know. I think they did really well, which is why they're definitely in today's off meta video. Next up, we're looking at Steve Harvey fan #1 with their Arbok and Weezing at 42nd place. Now, looking at their deck, it is a standard anti-meta deck with your 2 lines of Weezing, 2 lines of coughing Arbok, Professor Researchers, 2 Kogas, 1 Giovanni, 2 Sabrinas, 1 X Speed, probably to be used for the Arbok or Ekans or maybe even coughing early on, 2 Potions, and 2 Pokeball. This is just super solid into, honestly, the current meta because this is very strong into Mewtwo. But also, if you get Arbok out there, you can 2-hit corner a Pikachu with 60-60. So it's a very strong deck. Let's look at their matches and what they went up against. They actually did not go up against any Pikachus. They lost their first match into a Charizard Moltres. However, they went on a full-on win streak against another Charizard Moltres, Machamp, 3 Mewtwo Gardevoirs back-to-back, and that's where this deck thrives. Then another Charizard Moltres. Man, this matchup roulette here is crazy. They also beat a mirror match with Arbok and Weezing. They did, however, lose to another Mewtwo Gardevoir and then beat a final Mewtwo Gardevoir. So honestly, this deck list had a pretty decent matchup into its preferred matchup for this tournament. So shout out to you for that 42nd place. But now let's look at the 41st place, Executor Alakazam by Zandatsu. Again, 8-2. Look at this. This is kind of nuts. I'm imagining that they're running both energies here, Grass and Psychic. So the fact that a dual energy deck made it in top 5, I'm a huge fan for it. They have 2 Executor lines, 2 Alakazam lines, and then 1 Meowth to help you draw, 2 Professor Researchers, 1 Sabrina, 2 potions, 2 X speeds, and 2 Pokeballs. And mind you, none of these are showing any red cards, which is a huge thing in tournaments. Definitely a very cool looking deck, and I'm glad it did so well. This is definitely something that I would love to run in a tournament, but it's just that dual energy. It gets me kind of scared on actually running it. But let's look at what they beat. A ton of Pikachu meta. They lost against one. They lost against 2 Pikachu metas, but honestly, they went up against a lot. And I'm imagining that's because, you know, your Alakazam can one-shot a Pikachu once it's fully online, but also Executor pressures Pikachu tremendously with its coin flips to dealing up to 80 damage. It also beat 3 Mewtwo EXs and Gardevoirs, and 1 Starmie and Articuno. So above all, this deck did really good, and honestly might be the first dual energy deck that I see perform this well in such a massive tournament. And just when you thought things couldn't get any wackier, here we have Fengar99 with a Greninja Mewtwo deck list. They went 9-2, and they were just 1 spot away from hitting top 16. This is the 17th place. This is insane. This is actually insane. They have 1 Mewtwo EX, 2 Kangaskhan, 2 Greninjas. They have a red card. They have Sabrina. They have Professor Research, a Giovanni, 2 X Speeds, 2 Pokeballs, a potion, and a red card. The thing that I don't know, and it doesn't show us here, are they only running Psychic Energy, or are they also running a dual energy? Because if they're running a dual energy deck list here, it's the second dual energy deck that we've seen perform really well. I just don't know, right? Maybe Greninja's there only for the ability. I genuinely have no idea. But this is probably the spiciest deck I have seen in any tournament thus far. Performed this well. Again, they were 1 spot away, you guys, from hitting top 16. And if we look at their matches, look at this. They had 2 losses. They lost against a Mewtwo Gardevoir, and they lost against a Pikachu Raichu. Respectable, really. But however, they beat a Mewtwo Gardevoir. They beat 2 Pikachu Raichus in a row. Oh, dude, imagine getting 3 in a row back to back with your Greninja deck. Like, it's probably not that great for you, unfortunately. Then we have the Moltres, Charizard they beat. They beat another Mewtwo Gardevoir, and then they beat 4 back-to-back Pikachu EXs, the super aggressive ones, super meta. This deck is honestly, it's super impressive. Shout out to you for getting 17th place. You should be extremely proud with yourself. Which brings us to the final deck that I want to talk about. And this one got 5th place. So this is top 8 by Hayato. They went 12-1 with this deck. It's going to blow your mind. Look at that. Look how many EX Pokemon. You guys said it couldn't be done, but they did it. They have 2 full lines, 2 copies of the Charizard EX, 2 Moltres, 1 Growlithe, and 2 Arcanines. The goal of this deck is to get your Moltres out there and to ramp either your happy puppy boy or your giant burning lizard monster, right? You ramp them up and they start dishing out damage and just shredding your opponent. We have 2 Professor Researchers, 1 Sabrina, 2 Pokeballs, 2 X Speeds, 1 red card, and a single potion. Well, man, am I impressed with these new decks that people are cooking up. And this is before we get any more cards, any new mini sets or anything. I'm telling you, this game is so early into this competitive stage, but people are starting to branch out and bring all these cool, spicy decks. So shout out to you for getting a top 5 right there. Also, let's look at what they played against. They only lost against a Charizard and Moltres, which is kind of funny and ironic when you think about it. But let's count this out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They beat 6 Mewtwo EXs with Gardevoir. They beat the kind of a mirror match, a Charizard and Moltres. They beat essentially their weakness was Starmie and Articuno, and then they beat 1, 2, and 3 Pikachu metas, as well as an Arbok and Weezing anti-meta. But there you guys have it. This deck's amazing. This tournament was astounding, like the amount of players and the amount of data that we're getting from this. And also shout out to literally all these other players. For those of you who want to know who the first player was, right here I'll show you. It's Mojo Sueko, and they ran a standard Mewtwo EX Gardevoir line. Here you go. Nothing crazy. They got the baby Mewtwo, a red card. That's the first place. But we're really, this is also impressive. Shout out to you. I'm not trying to take it away from you, but also the 5 off-meta decks that made the top 100 when you really look at it. Shout out to you guys. Amazing work. But there you guys have it. Don't forget to hit the like button. Consider subscribing if you like these tournament breakdowns here on the channel, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Later.